I didn't milk cows. I drove tractors, and I had a very special pony at the farm. The pony was loaned to my father for me. My father was from Louisa County, so he had some friends over there. And these friends, the Chisholm family, had lots of riding horses. And among the horses, they had this 5-gaited pony. And their children eventually outgrew the pony. And so Mr. Chisholm said to my father at the Belmont Horse Show, Monday morning I'm sending the pony up to your house for that little girl because she needs that to ride. Not do you want it, I'm sending it. And he sent it because I think he knew how much I wanted that pony.
Aww.
And it was the nicest something that anybody's ever done for me. It was just beautiful. And so the pony arrived, and I kept the pony for about 3 or 4 years until I outgrew him, because I was about 7 when I got him. And that is one of the highlights of my life, was becoming acquainted with Trixie. And I took extremely good care of Trixie and would ride Trixie to the man who put new shoes on him. And also near that man was a country grocery store, and I could always talk my mother into needing something at the store, so I'd get a chance to ride Trixie. And she'd always follow up with something, loaf of bread or something that she really needed. But this was an educated pony. When I headed to the grocery store, which was about, I reckon, 2 miles up the road, he slowly went to the store. When we turned around after I'd gotten my loaf of bread, he was like a streak of lightning going back home.
Right.
Now, animals are so smart, and we don't realize just how smart they are. Trixie knew that if he just went along just so comfortably for me, and then all of a sudden would just stop, and over his head I'd go, end up on the ground, get back up on Trixie, start over again. It was such fun. It really, really was.
Now, did you ride in the Belmont Horse Show?
Rode the pony.
Did he jump?
No, the pony didn't jump, but beautifully trained in the gaits. He really, really could trot, walk, canter, the whole bit. He knew how to do it.
Did you have a telephone in your house when you were a child?
Not when I was a child, no.
And did you have electricity in your home?
But I do remember vaguely when we had the oil lamp. Just very, very vaguely. And I just remember my mother being so extremely careful with those lamps because, really, they were terribly dangerous. An oil lamp, if you drop it, it's a glass lamp to begin with, you got a problem.
Do you remember World War II?
Yes, oh yes. Yeah. I had a brother who was a gunner on a B-29. I'll never forget it. He was my second oldest brother. I do remember that, yeah.
Did he survive?
Yes, he did.
That was a dangerous job.
Yes, it was, but he did survive.
Do you remember listening to the radio during the war?
I'll tell you when I remember listening to the radio, I had a terrible, terrible case of whooping cough when I was probably 11 or 12, somewhere along in there. And I missed many weeks of school because it just wouldn't give up. And I remember then Dr. Pendleton from Mineral would drive over to our home, which was about a 12-mile drive, to check on me because the congestion was so great. I didn't know why he was coming every day, but they later told me why he did. He was afraid that he was going to lose me. It was that much congestion, and he couldn't get it to break. And so finally it did, but that was a long, long drawn-out illness. It really was. But see, we didn't have all the medicines we have today.
Right.
And you just had to live with it and let it do whatever it was going to do. We lived in, I'm going to say it was a pretty old home. But you know, beauty isn't everything. Well, I found out as a little kid roaming around in that great big house. One of these houses, they add a room and add another room and maybe another 2 rooms as the family increases. Well, I found me in one of these rooms, and it was later I later found out it was the parlor. So you just didn't go in the parlor with muddy shoes or anything that was going to mess up the carpet and all of that. The piano, well, this thing was sitting there. I didn't know what it was. I was a little bitty girl, and I was roaming the house where I wasn't supposed to be. And I did this to this little white thing on this bunch of white things across here. And Lord have mercy, this pretty sound came out. And so I tried a few more, and I was just getting all kinds of sounds. That was the beginning of my music education, right there. I was so entranced with that piano, I didn't know what to do. And so my mother caught on to the fact that that was what was drawing me to the parlor, was the piano. So she moved the piano over to the sitting room, clear across the house, had it moved over there. And of course, I had 3 older brothers and a daddy. And they didn't want to be disturbed with me doing the piano. Well, my mother could be kind of tough when she had to be. She said, Elizabeth lives here just like we all do, and when she gets ready to play that piano, say nothing. Get up and leave if you don't want to hear it. Whew, well, that got through to them. So she went to Louisa and asked if anybody over there knew of a piano teacher. And they said, yes, we've got one of the best around. And they directed me to Miss Carly Woodward. My teacher, thank goodness, felt like her motto was, you are entertaining, you're learning to serve a community, and you're learning to entertain. So you've got to learn a variety of music. Now, not all music teachers look at it that way. Most of them want just classic. And I was so glad that she took that approach, because it's certainly true, I've had to use both. But particularly the more tunes you would hear today, you know, to keep up with today's music. And so I have done that, still do that. Well, my first church, the one that I belonged to, was way down the country. It was called Kirk O'er the Cliff. And it's in the edge of Spotsylvania, close to Orange County line and close right inside of Spotsylvania. And they had an organ that you had to pedal at the bottom and play this way with your hands. And don't you think I didn't have to do a little thinking on that one. The coordination was something else. But I've just the minute I got it, I had it, and I knew that I did. I felt it. I knew that it was there. So I did that the whole time I was in high school. I played in that church. And it so happens, this is beside the point, but the lady who was playing the organ, her health was beginning to fail. And many years later, I ended up marrying one of her sons. And when it got ready for me to think about what I was going to do when I graduated from high school, I told my parents what I wanted to do. And my father said, "Who's ever heard of anybody making a living playing a piano?" And I said, "Daddy, would you give me a chance?" And he didn't know what to say when I said that. He said, "Well, all right." So I did some investigating, and I found out that Madison College in Harrisonburg had a good program. And I went, and they did have a good program. But I had to have a minor instrument, and organ could be a minor. And I was always fascinated with a pipe organ, always. They had a man who taught organ at Madison College. And he said, sure, we'll work out something. And when I sat down at that big organ in that humongous auditorium, I thought, I cannot be sitting here. I just can't be. And so Mr. Hicks was his name. So Mr. Hicks would give me lessons on this big organ. I mean, it was humongous. I looked like a little midget sitting down at that thing. And I knew after the first lesson that I had not made a mistake. It was what I wanted to do, and I saw that I believed I could do it. And so I did. And so I had both piano lessons and organ lessons, and had to take voice lessons, as well as ever so many music classes. And I ended up 4 years of music education at Madison College in Harrisonburg. And my first job was teaching in Orange County, the first full-time music teacher hired in Orange County. Been in Orange ever since. Orange had just gotten its first consolidated high school, and so there were many rules that Mr. Call had to follow, and hiring a music teacher was one of them. And so I made an interview, made arrangements for one, and I went in, and he shuffled around in his office a bit, and I could tell he was kind of on edge. And he said, "Well, they tell me I've got to hire one of these. I suppose you'll do." And I thought, my heavens, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I'm going to do it. And so I said, "Mr. Kyle, I would like to take the job." And he said, "All right, we'll try it." Still, I could tell there was that little wondering, what is this all about? All right, I got my first list of students, and guess whose name was on the list? Rita Jane Kyle, his daughter. Well, I'd been taught at Madison College, you tell people that parents have to come and follow up on their children. They don't just send them to a concert. Those parents need to be there and see what's going on. And so I made up a little note to go to all of the parents And I had quite a few. This was now the first year of the consolidated high school. Everything and everybody is new to each other and buildings and what have you. And so this letter went to C.J.M. Kyle's home as well as anybody else's, because I was going to teach his daughter. And it said that to the interest of and success of these students, all parents would be at all concerts that the course did. So C.J.M. showed up, and he began to see what this thing called choral music was all about. Well, his daughter stayed with me the 4 years she was in high school, as did many of the other students also. It really takes a lot of thought to how you're going to handle a class that's part football team and part chorus. Madison College taught me a lot, but they left out that little part. They didn't teach me how to handle that. So I had to just do it myself. But, you know, it turned out that those boys didn't even know they could sing. They were taking the class because they heard it was easy and they'd get a credit. And see, they wanted to play football. They didn't want to take Latin and all this other stuff. And so they came knocking on the music room door. And they definitely were there, no two ways about it. And it ended up that I had some excellent singers. And some of those boys sing in choirs today. And it's because they learned how back then. And I'm real proud of that. You think about it, music is a part of everybody's life. You can't avoid it. Everywhere you go, there's music. And to know a little something about the background of that music and how much you have to practice to get it to a certain point that you can produce it to the public, that's another education in itself too. And that's what these big football players found out. They really did. And I don't think they regretted it one bit either. I see quite a few of them around still. Miss Holley, do you remember when so-and-so and you took us to Richmond to see so-and-so? And yeah, you took us to Washington. Yeah, I did. That's how you learn and get ahead and know what's going on in this world. Mm-hmm. Get them out of the house and let them find out. And that's exactly what went on. It wasn't just music in those classes. We had we sort of approached life along with the music. And I know that sounds very weird, but there's a lot of truth in that it will work. Because these youngsters had done a splendid job. They really had. And I don't know what they must have told people. They must have threatened them, you've got to come to our program, you've just got to come. And they came. And it pleased the children so much. Right. When they came out and saw that auditorium filled and some people standing around the back of the walls, they thought, my, something's going on here tonight and we are it. And that meant a lot to them. The community, I believe it was the Rotary Club, knew that I was very anxious to have the club, the musicals in robes, choir robes. And somehow they managed to get their hands on monies that bought robes for 170, well, it was about 175 robes. And the satin collars that went with them. That was a right special looking group when you opened the curtains on that. But I know I taught for a total of 26 years. I know I did that.
Right.
But I took time off to have 3 children, and then they came up with this business that if you taught at the high school, you had to have a master's degree. And I want to tell you that is an education in itself. To have a house full of children, go to UVA and get a master's and teach school.
And you did that?
Yes, I did, because it was something I wanted to do. And I'm determined. And I did it. And I taught for a total of 26 years because I love music. And I don't consider it going to work. You know, as most people who have a job are going to work. But that wasn't going to work.
Right, that was just pleasure.
Just real pleasure.
What did you do with yourself after you retired from the music program at Orange County High School?
I was still substituting at the organ in several of the churches around here because they didn't have, if an organist got sick, they just didn't have anybody to, play for them. So I've done a whole lot of that. And that kept the organ going for me, so that was great. And then I sang in the Presbyterian Church choir, and that got me back to the singing part of the program. So that's one thing about music, there's always a need for it, or use, or whatever, however I say that. But it is, it's needed.
Yeah.
And so then I found myself playing for numerous funerals, because most people want music at funerals. And so they would call Liz, and Liz would go play. And that's Liz's life history. She's been playing piano or organ ever since. I am enjoying being here, and I still love my home dearly. But if I have to be out of my house because my family doesn't want me living by myself, which is why I'm here, I can't think of a nicer place to be than right here, because everybody is so nice. I just can't think of anything that I want or need or should have. I can't think of anything, because everything is all taken care of just so quietly, I don't feel like anybody is going out of their way for me, because I wouldn't like that. I really wouldn't. The only advice I would give would be to parents is don't misjudge your child. I think that has a tendency to happen, and that creates a bad atmosphere when you do it.